How do you know when you're cared for? How do you know when your self-care is working? How about your relationships? How do you know when your relationships are caring, where they're caring for you and the other people that are in them? We'll be exploring this and more on today's episode of Our Waking Dream. Happy summer solstice. It's Coco Swanson here, and I am here each week on Our Waking Dream to go over a basic astrology theme that's moving through the week, how it applies to you, how it applies to us, and then I distill practices. And the practices come from my 30 years of work with energy healing, wisdom traditions, ritual, and cultural tools that I'll be talking about this week that we can employ to create the change that we're desiring. This said, I have a whole ecosystem of support. I have a membership platform, Leadership Studio, where we integrate this into leadership. I have Solutions Lab, that's a free bi-weekly problem solving. I jump on live. And all of that plus more is over on cocoswanson.com. I'll create links below for that. Okay, let's get started. So the astrology that we're working with today is similar to what we were looking at last week in relation to the shift of seasons into Cancer. The sun is now in Cancer. We also have Jupiter and Mercury at the final degrees of Cancer. And those two planets actually are why I'm continuing on with the lessons of care and extending that into culture. Because last week it was to take a self-care audit, to look at how centralized you are in your own life. And if caring for you is as central as you are in your life. This week we'll look at how we are creating cultures and how we create cultures of care. We're always in culture. I'm in relationship to myself. That creates an internal culture. Anytime we're in relationship, we have an atmosphere, a culture that we create. So we'll be talking about that today and how to create cultures of care and why. So when we have a focus of different planets, or in this case, the sun, Jupiter, Mercury, when we have that much emphasis in one sign, it's important to look at both the strengths and the weaknesses of that sign and how we embody and do an audit of the weaker attributes in order to strengthen our relationship within that sign. So this is Cancer. Cancer is all about care. It's about nourishment. It's about belonging. Or it's about how we're not cared for, how we're building resentment and building emotional baggage versus creating clear, cozy environments to be together. Cancer is about culture. It's the mama sign. It's in its glory. It's that everyone belongs, knows that they're welcome, that we clear out old emotional baggage and we create nurturing environments for ourselves and each other. So when we're taking an audit, when we're looking at how we are doing with caring for each other, caring for ourselves. That's what we look at. How are you building an internal environment, an internal culture? And is it nurturing? Is it loving? Or is it critical? Do you feel supported by yourself? That's the internal culture. And then we have it in our love relationships. So everything I practice can change between love, lifestyle, and leadership. To me, all of these practices are similar. They just wear different hats depending on where we're wearing the practices. So if I am exploring the internal environment I make, that's me and me. If it's me and you, my sweetheart, then it's how are we creating an environment for care? What allows you to feel cared for? Here's what lets me feel cared for. That might be where we employ love languages. Like I feel cared for when I have words of praise, or when somebody is in service to me, acts of service, or through touch. So this implies that we would already know what we need to feel cared for as soon as we become in relationship with another. So that's love relationship. We also have friendships. How are we creating culture in our friendship? Is there room for error? Can we make mistakes? Can we stumble? Because we're human. And so do your friendships have room for error? Do they have room to air out old emotional charge? How do you feel taken care of in your friendships? And is this spoken about? Oftentimes the cultures we create, they're implied. They're just how we should do things or shouldn't do things. We're already doing them. The tricky thing is we all have different assumptions about the cultures we're in, even if we're in the same culture. Okay, so we've got our culture with ourselves. Is it a culture of care? We have our cultures with our loved ones, our sweeties. And in what ways are you participating or not participating in cultures of care, of nurturing, of love, of acceptance? How about in your friendships? Then we have the work environment, which is an entirely different topic, but it's not, because we're in a culture at work. Well, oftentimes work cultures are just like they are with our cultures within ourselves and in our love lives and in our friendships and in our family. It's implied. It's just, this is how it is. And it's more common than not that a work culture values productivity over nurturing. The catch is, when we're nurtured, we're more productive. I think we have it backwards. I suggest that we create cultures at work where we are nurtured, and then we expect productivity. That the human and the emotions that come with being human and the care that's needed in being a sensitive human comes first. After we're cared for, then we can talk about productivity. So that's just an example of how we are or are not creating a culture of care in our work environment. And then in our communities, how do you feel in your community? An ongoing way to test if we have a culture of care is how we are with mistakes. In your community, do you have room to make mistakes? Do they have room to make mistakes? Do you create room for the other, whoever the other is, to make mistakes? Do you create a nurturing environment where we can all fumble and be humans? And how about, do we measure our success as humans by how many mistakes we make together? Creating cultures of care. Exceptionally important all the time, but especially right now with Jupiter and Mercury at the final degrees of Cancer, the sign of care, and the sun entering into its month of Cancer, to really look at this. After inquiry questions always come practices. Practice that I suggest is a culture of care audit to look at number one, what cultures are you participating in? Remember that we're in a culture anytime there's me and another. The first culture is me, or in this case, you, witnessing you internally. What kind of culture are you creating for yourself? Do you create an atmosphere that's loving, that celebrates mistakes, that's nourishing? Or are you hypercritical of yourself? Are you a perfectionist? Are you looking for the areas that you've done wrong and criticizing them? I find that it's taken a lot of training for me to create an internal atmosphere of care. How about you? I had to change my internal voice, the narrative that I was creating towards myself. Because for whatever reason, I was trained to criticize myself quite intensely. I criticize what I look like, what I say, what I think. How about you? And if so, is that an environment that allows for you to feel sensitive, for you to feel nurtured, for you to feel like you belong to yourself? So, in the culture of care that you're creating with you, do you need to create more softness? Do you need to widen your embrace of what is lovable to include loving all of you? How about in you, in your love and your family, your friends? What cultures are you a part of right now? Are you in a romance? That's a culture. How about your friends? Each friendship has its own culture, and then groups of friends have theirs. How about your family? Culture is not hypothetical. It's not what we say we value. It's what we are practicing. It's implied. It's implicit. How caring are the cultures that you're in right now within romance, within friendship, within family? And how could you contribute to being more caring within them? First, I suggest is talking about building cultures of care for each other and what that would look like. How can we be more loving? How, sweetheart, do you know that I'm loving you? Talking about your love languages. How do you feel when you're not cared for, when you're emotionally unsafe? To start to dialogue, because we all have different cues and different reasons that we might feel safe or not emotionally safe in our relationships. So primarily starting to talk about that and look at the ways in which we can make subtle shifts to create more room for care. How about at work? What cultures are you already playing a part at work? Your team? Are you leading a team? Are you following somebody else's lead? What jurisdiction do you have to create change within the cultures in your workplace? Everyone, no matter what part you're playing, has the jurisdiction to change themselves. So first and foremost, what culture are you creating for yourself? Because if you're creating an atmosphere of care for yourself, that can't help but overflow to how you hold space for another person. But also, is your work culture an environment that naturally causes you to feel cared for? If so, double thumbs up. If not, how can you contribute to being more thoughtful and caring for yourself and others? And if you're in a place of leadership, how can you start to speak and create space for more care and noticing and appreciating what we appreciate appreciates. So if we're creating an environment where we're celebrating each other, that's a culture of care. If we're creating an environment where we're criticizing each other without celebrations, no care. So just to look at this right now, to create an audit, to look at the cultures you're participating in and which ones feel caring, and what subtle shifts you can do to care more deeply for yourself and those that you're involved with within your cultures. The other practice I suggest in creating cultures of care is exhaling criticism together in community. So we commit. What culture are you focused on right now? First off, that might be the culture of you and you creating an internal witness for you. Are you being hypercritical of yourself? If so, you commit to noticing when you're hypercritical, to exhaling it, to literally taking the criticism and exhaling it with breath. You choose to exhale it out of your brain and out of your body. If you think of emotion as energy in motion, if I'm experiencing criticism or resentment, disappointment, anger, frustration, internally or towards anyone else, I can exhale it. I can exhale the energy. So what's that like for you in community? In community with yourself, with your loved ones, and at work? How can you create a shared protocol around exhaling criticism and choosing to appreciate each other? One, we name something. When we're bringing something into practice and community, we need to name it. We need to bring it up so we can talk about it, to understand it together. We say, let's build a culture of care. How can this be more nurturing for ourselves and each other in this friendship, in this love relationship, in this work relationship? Well, how about we try this practice? How about we try exhaling criticism from us? So we stop building resentment and we start building appreciation. So we name it first. After you agree to do it with another, then you choose to pause when you notice emotions that stray from the double thumbs up. Because really, as soon as we go into double thumbs down or even one thumbs down emotion in a room, the room being our atmosphere that we're building in culture, then that energy is moving through it. And we want to build cultures of care, of nurturing, of love. Those are thumbs up emotions. So anytime we notice when emotions are not feeling good, we as a culture, you and me, or you and our team, your team, chooses to exhale. Exhale before action. Exhale before talking more. We want to exhale, relieve the culture from a wave of negative emotions, a wave of not nurturing emotions. We exhale them. Where do we exhale them? This, I suggest you have some sort of stone or you have some sort of place that carries symbolical meaning. That's a place that carries the negative emotions. I love working with stones because by nature they carry more dense emotions and we can pull negative emotions out of our body through breath and intention. Think emotion is energy in motion. So if you're wanting to move negative emotions from your body, from your mind, and from the culture you're within, your relationship, your friendship, your family, your work, you pause and exhale. I release all negative emotions from this. I release all critical thoughts from this. And with your intention, the energy moves. If you're doing this in tandem with another, you're both exhaling criticism. You're both exhaling emotions, then your relationship can turn back into a place of care. At work, at home, your relationship with yourself. When you choose to exhale criticism, exhale the stuck, icky emotions, then that creates space for care again. Now, I'm curious what happens when we do this over time with each other. So let me know if you employ this week or any week within your relationships, your relationship to yourself, your loved ones, the people you work with. Tell me how it works. What happens when we start to exhale together and we start to focus on building care together? Okay, that's all for this week of Our Waking Dream. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Until next week. Thank you for being a part of our community here at Our Waking Dream. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Fill my cup and let it overflow. Let it overflow with love.